Hello everyone, this is Jamie here. Welcome to another session of Export Services. In this session, we'll be using an amazing modeling plugin called Automodeller. To find this plugin, simply go to Google and type in Automodeller. Click on its link. On the main page, we have some of its powerful 3D painting features seen in here, which are amazing. In the tutorials page, we have some of the basic tutorials. There's also the feature list page, with further examples of what's possible to achieve. This page allows users to buy the full version, or to simply download the trial version in this other page here. Once downloaded, simply run the installation and make sure it's installed in the same directories as your 3ds Max. Once installed, click on the Customize toolbar and choose the Customize User Interface. In this dialog, go to the Toolbars panel and extend the category All Commands list. Choose the Automodeller command from the list. Next, click on the new button and name it as Automodeller, followed by dragging it from the Action section onto the new toolbar button created. Move and snap it onto the toolbar and close the main dialog. To open the Automodeller plugin, simply click on this button. To ensure the Automodeller plugin is automatically loaded with 3ds Max, simply greenlight the Max Start here by clicking on it. To quickly go through some of its main parameters, we have the Tutorials button to redirect users to the Tutorials page. This question mark button opens the help files once clicked. This button opens the Properties dialog for model sources and target settings. This button turns selected objects in a scene into targets. This one makes selected objects into a source, and this one to unmake them. Under Quick Tools, we have all these four results to select, delete, hide and unhide. Under All Targets, we have the options to select, unmake, hide, unhide, regenerate all, and so on. To hide this entire dialog, simply click on this button here. This paintbrush toolbar is the main feature of this plugin. When clicked, it allows users to paint mesh sources onto objects or targets. This button allows users to paint once clicked. Before painting, this section needs to have a mesh assigned to it first. Let's open this daylight exterior scene, which is available to my Patreon supporters and those who already have this 3D scene. For the purpose of this exercise, I've hidden most 3D assets such as trees, shrubs, cars, etc. As you can see in this render, all I had was a simple material with a texture applied to the roof surface. With the Automodeller plugin, we'll be able to create amazing roof tiles with a click of a button. To start, let's select a roof tile and isolate it. Next, click on the Max file and choose to save selected. Open the saved roof file in a brand new 3ds Max scene. This is the save roof object, and this is the model 3D roof tile mesh. When modeling objects to be later painted onto objects, ensure to start modeling them from the top viewport. This is to avoid any potential problems down the line. To set this roof tile mesh as a source, make sure the top viewport is enabled. While the roof tile mesh is selected, click on the Sources button here. Before painting, you can choose the view to paint from here. For the purpose of this exercise, we're going to show what to do first before painting onto surfaces. In the front viewport, let's begin tracing over the roof. Click on the Shapes command panel and choose the Line button. Next, enable the Grid and Snap Settings button and right click on it. Under Snaps, the Vertex function is enabled and the Endpoint. Under Options, all these other functions were enabled, as well as the remaining functions seen here. Begin clicking and dragging some of these points to trace over the roof. Click Yes to close the spline. As you can see here, the original roof had its extra gutter outline, which shouldn't be here to start with. Even if you was part of the roof, it probably would have been better to model the extra part separately for the Automodeller plugin to work properly. Let's adjust this area with Editable Spline. To enable the Snap tool, press the S key on your keyboard or simply click on this toolbar button as previously done. Next, choose the Extrude modifier from the list by pressing E on your keyboard and choosing it. Under Extrude Parameters, increase its amount value to match the depth of the original roof. Following that, apply the Edit Poly modifier on top. The Automodeller Paint tool works best if the Edit Poly is applied before the UVW map, otherwise it won't work properly. Finally, let's apply the UVW map modifier on top. The UVW tiling is absolutely key for the Automodeller to work. Each tiling value will set the size of the roof tiles when painting on the mesh source. Choose the box mapping type. Next, open the material editor. Select an empty material slot and click on its diffuse toggle. Choose the Checker procedural map from the list. We've chosen the specific procedural map because it will allow us to clearly see the tiling on a surface. Click to assign it to the selected roof under U, V and W tile. Let's start with a value of 10 for all three. Next, let's select on a roof tile mesh again and click on the select text seen here. Note how it suddenly changed from the text select to group 001. To remove this mesh as a paint source, simply select in the viewport and click on the Properties toolbar, followed by clicking on the Unmake button. The mesh is now removed as a paint source. Let's move the roof tile mesh close to the roof model. While the roof tile mesh is still selected, open the Properties dialog again and click on the Make into Source button. Once again, the roof tile mesh has become the paint source. The UV brush size sets the size covered with each brush stroke or click. The bigger the brush size, the quicker the surface will be filled with each stroke or click. The brush size doesn't affect the size of each mesh tile. The UVW tiling values do that. Enable the paint button and start clicking on the roof to paint it. As you can see, only small portions of the mesh are being painted with each stroke. If we increase the brush size to 5 and paint again, you can clearly see bigger areas being covered with each stroke. It's also worth pointing out that mesh tiles remain the same size as before because they're being controlled by the UVW tiling values. If you zoom in closely, we'll notice that parts of the roof tiles are sank into the main roof surface directly below. To correct this, let's first select the roof tile mesh gizmo previously created by the Automodeller plugin when it was first set as a mesh source. Next, in the front viewport, begin moving it down. As you can see, the tiles are beginning to sit on top of the roof nicely. There are times when the mesh tile source isn't oriented in the right direction. If you were to paint such types of mesh sources as depicted in this example, the mesh source would be rotated in the wrong directions as seen here. For this reason, always ensure the mesh source is rotated in the correct direction. Also, Automodeller enables users to select multiple mesh sources to be painted with. For specific and more accurate results, some users prefer to create two separate parts of the pitch roof and paint them separately. In this final example, we're going to create a donut shape under splines. Open the Modify panel and set the interpolation step to 100. Because we'll be painting on a curved surface, the more steps or segments it has, the more accurate the mesh source will look when painting on it. Extrude the shape as previously done. Next, we'll create a different surface to be used as a paint source. Under splines, enable the rectangle shape button and create in the top viewport. In the Modify panel, add the Floor Generator modifier and set its board size. For more information about this modifier, please check my other tutorials. As mentioned earlier, create your mesh source in the top viewport if possible. The value here depicts the amount of memory currently being used. Let's increase the tile extrusion to 15mm. Following that, right-click and choose to collapse all and convert to editable poly. Next, let's assign the same checker material onto the donut object to preview the tiling in a viewport and add the editable poly modifier on top, followed by the UVW map. Let's make the mapping type as cylindrical with the cap function enabled. In U, V and W tile, change it to 20. Open the Properties dialog and make the new tile into a source as previously done. Open the Paintbrush dialog. This was the previous mesh source. Let's delete it by simply selecting it and pressing delete on your keyboard. Because you'll be painting on a cylindrical surface, let's change the override border settings to deform. Enable the paint button and begin painting tiles onto the cylinder. As previously done, let's adjust the gizmo of the mesh source to ensure the tiles are not sank into the cylinder. To overlap this gap, let's select the cylinder object and make its step values adaptive. As mentioned earlier, the smoother the surface, the more accurate the painted mesh will deform to a surface. Let's hide the cylinder to see the curved tiles. To randomize the tiles, we are going to create a new set of tiles and change them slightly. Open the Properties dialog and choose to Unmake and hide and select the cylinder. Click to clear paint mask. Select both tile objects in the scene. Make them into a source. Change the brush size to 5. Enable the deform function again. Close the Properties dialog. Enable the paint button again and begin painting the new mesh sources. As previously done, let's adjust the gizmo. This gap is what we currently have between these separate surfaces. We can move them closer together to bridge the gap. It's also worth mentioning that you can still add other modifiers such as slice, FFD and much more on top of these surfaces to achieve a specific result. Also, in a properties dialog, we have all these additional functions to achieve specific results. There's a UV tiling section, the copy and instance options for the group meshes, curved surface, stairs mode, borders and much more. For the brush paint, we have all these other options here. Once satisfied with everything, simply select the group of tiles we have just created. Every time we paint meshes onto surface, they're created as one group, as you can see here. Next, click on the group toolbar and choose to ungroup. While they're still selected, right click and choose to convert them into editable poly. Following that, select on one of the objects in the scene and open the modify panel. Enable the element selection mode and click on the attach toggle. Choose to select all and click to attach. All tiles are now part of one object. Because this is a big mesh, we're going to convert it into a vray proxy to reduce the file size and speed up the rendering time. I've already created a tutorial on how to create proxies. Simply right click and choose the option to vray mesh export. This folder sets the location of where your proxy file will be saved into. Here, we can rename the vray mesh file. However, the file extension .vray mesh should remain intact. Enable the function to automatically create proxies and click OK. This object is now a proxy file, which is extremely light in size and faster to render. Note that its original file was automatically renamed to start with the word vray proxy _ followed by the original name. This will make it easier to identify and pick. If we open the modifier panel, we will see all the standard proxy parameters here. We can set its viewport display as bounding box, preview from file, show the whole mesh, and so on. It's worth noting that users cannot apply modifiers onto proxy objects, otherwise the mesh will render with errors and artifacts. Just to show one more example, users can paint multiple mesh sources onto surfaces. This is the mesh we'll be using as a source. Let's detach the elements separately. And select them. Open the hierarchy panel, click on Effect Pivot Only Point and the Center to Object Alignment. Let's repeat the same action with this mesh. Automodeller has now a lot more information to work with. Select this set of tiles and click on the Source Objects button to add them as paint sources. As you can see here, the group of objects have been added as one source. Click to paint and begin painting on a surface. To create some randomness on a pattern, let's select some of the tiles and move them separately. To add multiple sources, let's select other tiles here and add them as a source. As you can see here, now we have multiple groups as a source. Select a second source and click to paint, followed by painting on a surface. Or you can select the previous group source and replace them again. Users can also add modifiers to distort specific mesh tiles. With the FFD modifier, users can push and pull at will. Also, users can select and edit mesh gizmos to distort the mesh pattern. Finally, if you are planning to later convert the group into one single mesh and proxy it, simply select the group and click to attach here and click to refresh. As you can see, the group has become one single mesh in a second. Even as a mesh, users can still continue to paint on top. Once you're happy with everything, you can simply convert it into a proxy as previously done. To quickly go back to the roof tile previously created, this is the original render with the roof as a texture, and this is the new render with the roof we've just created using the Automodeller plugin. The roof tile mesh source and the entire roof is available for my Patreon supporters and those who already have this external daylight course. I really hope you found this tutorial useful, like and share it, and I hope to see you on my next one.